Welcome to another edition of the Power Connector podcast. I'm Derek Dickow, here as your host and having what I like to call curiosity conversations with people that have achieved various levels of success in business, in life, people that I've become friends with, admire. And my guest today is somebody certainly that fits that bill. President and CEO of Core Advisors, Terry Judge, and welcome to the show.
Thanks, Derek. Thanks for having me.
It's good to see you.
This is going to be fun.
Yeah, I love the outfit today.
Thanks, man.
Kind of matches
Had
the
to
spring.
step it up.
Yeah, you look great. You look great. Terry, I don't recall when we first met, but I know it's been at least 15 years that you and I have shaken hands. And you in your previous career as a consultant and advisor, through what you're doing today, take me through some of that and help me understand, what you do and what's exciting to you as it is today.
How far do you want me to go back? All the way?
I kind of leave this as an open.
Okay.
So the open is what's new and exciting.
Yeah. Well, I mean, for starters, as a as a young guy, I feel like I've always had that pull to be an entrepreneur. I've always been thinking, like, what do these people do to get this type of result or where they live? I've always been intrigued by that, even as a young person. And so I've kind of gravitated towards, sales, marketing, always Tony Robbins early on, like read those books. And my background at that time was mechanical engineering. And I'm like, oh my God, I'm going down the wrong path, listening to probably my parents. And then kind of realized, okay, I'm going to pivot and I'm going to start learning some of this networking and communication and started reading the books, the tapes. And I've been on this trail for a long, long time, a lot of ups and downs, and started multiple businesses. In direct sales, you and I actually met within a direct sales company.
That's right.
And
Yeah.
I think I think for that time frame, you and I both learned, public speaking during those times, just trying to get up in front of the room. And that was wonderful experience in those direct sales type companies. Then I started more traditional businesses. And in 2006, I started Core. Never in my wildest dreams or thoughts would I ever be in the tax world. This was not what I thought I would ever end up doing. But I end up loving what I do. And I've been able to meet some of the most cool, innovative, successful people that I've been able to learn a lot from. And so I feel blessed to be in the position I'm in. It's kind of cool to be on the show with you and kind of sharing like where I've been and now kind of, I guess, hopefully, where I'm going in the future.
Yeah, I think one of the things that brought us together is our like attracts like. We hear that a lot in business, and I think one of the things that you do is you cultivate relationships with people in a very intentional way. And so I'd love to learn a little bit more about, through the course of your career, how you prioritize people and how you're able to build relationships with the CEO of a Fortune 500 company and someone that's just starting out at a firm that you're advising.
So first and foremost, I mean, as you know, relationships are everything. I think building relationships has become the biggest asset class I could ever be a part of. We always talk about, you got to invest, you're doing this, you're doing that, passive income, whatever, trying to accelerate the wealth conversation. But building and I think people bypass this sometimes, but really building relationships has been the number one thing that I think has been a good attribute for my success. It means everything to me, as you know, and there's, in terms of, nothing happens until there's a trust. And I think people bypass that. People rush to the sale. Oh, I got to close this deal. And they get stuck and they get frustrated and they wonder what happened or wonder what went wrong because they never took the time to establish the trust first. They never took the time to set the seeds. They never took the time to ask to take somebody out for a cup of coffee and just to get to know them and learn a little bit more about them. That's what I really learned, just to kind of less on me, more on them. How can I help? How can I help them leverage what they're doing? How do I add value, to people's lives? And ultimately, it comes back, tenfold. So, and there's all kinds of little things, hopefully, that we'll get into on how to continue to cultivate, those relationships. And I hear you talk about it too. Like, when you meet somebody, you may not have it may not be where that relationship flourishes, and that's okay. But you never know who they know. And you always want to follow up with them, even if it's just checking in. So, during my weekly, monthly kind of schedule, I'm always putting in my top 10 people that I want to reach out to and consistently be in front of. Whether that's just, hey, I'm just following up to see how you're doing. Love to connect, in the next couple of weeks. And people, just by setting those seeds, because you never know what I find too is, like, I'll run into, it's a small town. We all live, no matter what city you live in, it's a small community that you're building, and, you'll run into somebody somewhere, and that's really sometimes where the magic ultimately happens. I'll run into somebody at Starbucks. I've been reaching out to them for 2 months just because I had that little bit of face-to-face, or wherever I go, if it's a restaurant or a walk or the store, you bump into people. And it's just because you were in front of them for the last 3 months, all of a sudden they're like, oh my God, Terry, I've been meaning to call you. Let's connect next week. I do have something going on I want to share with you. Or I have a project going on. I'm about to buy a building or whatever. So just staying in front of somebody has been monumental, and just making sure that, whether you have and this is getting into marketing 101, but, make sure you've got some sort of email system that's going out. It doesn't have to be all about what you're selling. It just can be something that you're involved in, that there's a charity event coming up, and we'll talk about that, as you build your network, there's so many layers where it's just getting out and about, belonging to the, plugging into the community, belonging to different social or networks. Could be a chamber. Could be something that you're passionate about, and things will really start to snowball over time. But it takes time. No one can bypass the process to develop this network. And today, after 25 years of grind, you get to a point where if you do it right and you take care of people, the relationships will start to take care of you, and you no longer have to, knock on doors, or the business now will start to chase you. And it is a moment of truth. It is a dynamic that I think all entrepreneurs go through. And you're wondering, when does that kick in? So you find yourself now being more selective on who you get to work with. You're not begging anybody anymore to work with. And once you pivot and once you take that step back and you say, wow, I've really developed maybe a decent brand. I mean, we're always trying to get better at the brand. Maybe you've developed, a lot of happy clients that it's so organic and natural where they do share your name and contact information. You got to call Terry, you got to call Derek. And you get to that point where it just comes in on a consistent basis. So it's been an interesting journey, but it doesn't happen overnight. They say, what is it, 10,000 hours to master something?
Yeah, that's right.
And people, you cannot bypass the hours that you have to put in to get to somewhere, or to be kind of something that you're striving to be.
You touched on a few things that I'd like to rephrase and just bring it back to you. So having brand presence, showing up at the right rooms. Sometimes it's just socially being in the right restaurants, grabbing the coffee at the right places. People get familiar with seeing your face, and you do that locally here because obviously a lot of your clients are based in this area. So being present. I love the idea of having a top 10 list of people that you check in with. How often are you doing that? Is it once
weekly?
Weekly.
Yeah,
so once a week, you'll have a top 10 that you want to touch that particular week. And it sounds like you might share an article, or you might share some information, or you might just say, I've got no agenda, just calling to say hi.
Just especially if they're already a client, right? I mean, we get so busy on trying to land the next client, we forget the database. We forget the relationship that you've already spent all this time cultivating, and then we're off to the next deal, and we forget. And I'm totally guilty of this. I'm trying to be more conscious of just reaching out to people that are already clients, and then people that that I want to get to know personally. I try to eliminate the agenda of what the outcome is. I don't get so attached to the outcome. I ultimately, we'll talk about like some of these events that you host and what my goals are when I approach when I go into those rooms. But just in my everyday networking, I always have my top 10, every week. And let's say if I've made a good connection with 2 of them, I do check it off and say, okay, good. I've got lunch set up next week. Now, the other 8 that I've not been able to connect with, those take different nurturing tactics and different things. And some people like to be called. Some people like to be text. Some people, you don't want to be a stalker. There is an art form on how to follow up and not to start becoming annoying. Because if you say certain words, sometimes even saying, I'm just calling to follow up, it's an instant, oh, this guy's trying to sell me. Right. So there's just, I feel like there's different things, different thoughts, different things that you want to say that to trigger the relationship or get somebody to respond to you. So, but yeah, every week, my top 10, I try, and then I roll into the next week, and those are either they're my top tasks, my top priorities, my top people that I'm trying to reach and close that gap. And it ultimately it works beautifully at the end of the month because you can track, and a lot of times that turns into transactions and business and things that are starting to as new clients are coming on board, they want like more engagement and they want to know a little bit more about our company and how we can help. And next thing you know, we're doing business.
So it's a consistent approach. It's a weekly check-in with people, and then moving them along the marketing lines of how you repurpose and maybe text or send them an article or email drip campaign. All these things that you're doing to stay top of mind with people. I'd love to, if I could, further that thought that you had about the difference between contacting people, not being annoying, not bothering them, but also being persistent enough where you demonstrate, I do want to do business with you because I know we can add value to each other. How do you toe the line between being annoying in business, but also persistent?
Yeah, I think the ultimate goal is to get in front of somebody. So you and I have had many coffee conversations, and our relationship, I think, has accelerated. And then we start doing more things together because of that breakfast. So I am really adamant about getting in front of somebody at some point. I don't want to keep texting you, but I do want to say, Derek, what is your schedule in the next 2 weeks? Want to take you out to coffee. Let's grab a breakfast. Obviously you're a breakfast guy. I'm a coffee guy. I'm also a lunch guy and a dinner guy, but those are later in the process.
Right.
Let's date a little bit first. Let's get to know each other and see if there's some synergy between us. I want to know what you're working on. Like, what can I help with? What can I add value to you, and vice versa? And I think that is my ultimate goal in my top 10. I want to get in front of somebody. I'm either going to ask you for lunch or a breakfast, and that works. That seems to work very well.
Do you have a particular strategy when it comes to selecting if you invite them to breakfast or lunch or a social happy hour cocktail after work?
I don't really, the lunch and the breakfast to me is similar. If I have, if there's somebody that I really want to get to know, I think that would be best. I'm not ready to say, hey, let's go play 18 holes yet. We're not there yet, right? If you and I are meeting for lunch or breakfast, we're going to see if we want to go to dinner or drinks later. If we're excited to maybe start, collectively talking about stuff, maybe, whatever we're talking about, business. And so that's usually how I do it. Usually breakfast or lunch is equal to me. And then the next step would be, hey, in the next couple of weeks, I like to bring somebody out to, let's go meet it, for a drink. I got somebody I want to introduce you to that I think would line up perfectly with what you're doing. I want to bring somebody. It could be like a Tony Kanja. I'm throwing his name out there because he's always in the mix.
Yeah, he's out there.
He's either doing it to me. I've kind of learned that from Tony. If we're going to meet and there's some synergy, would you be opposed to maybe you invite somebody that would be, that maybe I would want to meet, and I'll bring somebody that, whether we're going to go get a cigar or we're just going to go get, let's go meet at happy hour for a nice glass of wine and we'll chat it out,
So first you'll invite them to a breakfast or a coffee or a lunch, something light, something simple, and keep the time frame, condensed. I think the reason I like breakfast is it's so quick. It's 45 minutes to an hour. You're in and out, and you can get to high-powered people at 6:30, 7:30 a.m. before the day starts. I find that the more successful people are, the more that they're willing to give you the early, but not the late, because the late is for their passion, their family, their interests.
Exactly.
But what you're doing, if I'm hearing you correctly, is you'll have that initial breakfast, coffee, or lunch. And then if there's an opportunity to do something further, you might add some value by saying, let's go do something socially. I'll invite somebody, you'll invite somebody, and now we have a cohesion that we can kind of create.
The cohesion has been established, and it's not going to get weird, or maybe, you know what I mean? Like we're jumping the gun here, and I'm bringing people to you, and you're like, dude, what? I don't want to meet your people. I don't even know there's no foundation.
Right.
So it's all about, I think with networking, you have to establish the foundation. It's just like certain steps that you have to take to be highly successful at it. You know, sometimes you can wing it and it'll still work out in your favor, but eventually that's not sustainable. So yeah, as you know, as you teach this, there is a process on how to build your network consistently. And if you do it correctly, it'll accelerate and it'll multiply faster than going to events and then hosting events.
Let's talk about hosting events.
It changes everything.
That's a big part of your practice. I see you do that all the time. By the way, I love the fact that you incorporate philanthropy in all of your events. And I think that's nice to encourage people to give back to the community. But you also write a check, which is a big part of it.
I do.
So talk to me a little bit about the way that you host events. How do you go into the mindset of, I enjoy bringing people together. I have this great following and great group of people that enjoy this, but how do you turn it into business?
Yeah. So great question. I think as you are building your network and you're doing all these things, and eventually you're like, okay, I built a sizable network now. I've got relationships. And so when I first started, I just would host, these little wine events. We call them Wine Down Wednesdays, and we would just pick a spot, and I'd have 20 people kind of show up, and people would bring people, and we just pick up the tab. It's great. We still do that. So every 90 days, I started something called Synergy. It's called Synergy of Detroit, and it's our networking identity, so to speak. We're starting to maybe formalize it a little bit more as we grow, to do more charity. But so then we said, okay, well, why not come together and give? And because there's nothing better than giving back. And so we've picked a handful of different charities that we believe strongly in. We've done some things with Dream Center of Pontiac, and a lot of homeless, a lot of poverty in Oakland County. It's massive. Everybody knows that's listening to this. So I said, let's make an impact. So we have a lot of successful folks and businesses that will attend our events, and they love it. I mean, we'll pick a cool venue. You've been to our events.
Yeah, fantastic.
They've been first class. What's awesome about it, and we'll raise, we charge usually $95 a ticket. We'll bring in 3 or 4 sponsors. The sponsors fill up like that. And we usually cap it at about 100 people to make it, we don't want to lose the intimacy. And we'll raise, 15 grand, and we just donate it. And it's in one night. I mean, obviously it took time to put it together.
But you have a committee and you have a group of people helping out.
And everyone gets involved, and it's the best feeling. And so what happens out of these events, the magic is obviously you're giving back, but the introductions that are being made at these events and the business, it could be 6 months after, Derek, and all of a sudden I run into somebody and they're like, they come up to me and they're, Terry, I just want to thank you for having me at that event. You don't know what that meant to me. I'm like, well, what do you mean? I got my biggest client out of your event. I have unbelievable relationships now that have come out of my event. And there's been so many transactions that have now taken place. I think we've done 5 or 6 of these events. So we are putting our next one together. It's going to be in July. It's going to be at the M1 Concourse. We were trying to do it downtown. We just ran out of time, so we kicked it. So stay tuned. We'll send that out. It's going to be sometime probably the 3rd week in July. It'll be at the M1 Concourse. And then we're having our first, this is cool, our first Synergy golf outing at Red Run Golf Course, September 18th. And we are going to raise a lot of money. And it's for the South Oakland Citizens for the Homeless. And we're going to, so we're really geeked. I've always wanted to host a golf event because I'm a golfer. And finally, we're just doing it. And it's a lot of work putting together a golf event.
Yeah.
So that's coming with that. So I think just to recap on the number one, it puts you in a position of leadership. It puts you in a position of credibility.
Well, let me stop you right there.
Yeah.
Mark, let's pause right there, and I'm going to rephrase this question, and then you re-ask it. Okay. So let's start again. So there's a lot of value, as you say, in convening and producing events. for those that haven't produced an event before, right? I see you have the wind down event, you have the golf outing. These are interests, passions of yours. How would someone go about, or what advice would you have for them into creating their own event?
Yeah. So number one, it's a lot of work. So put together a board. Grab some of your best friends, some of your best business people. If it's in your company, like I pulled in my director of operations. She's really the executor. She's implementing everything as we go. We handpicked, 5 different people that are all business owners that all have influence, and they all are, number one, we all come together and each of us have tasks and duties to do. It's not just falling on 1 or 2 people. And then we tap into their network, and they all are high influence people. So everybody invites, 20 people, and you show up, you've got some of the top doers in Detroit that I personally would have never been able to meet probably, or it would have maybe taken a lot longer to get to this individual. And once they show up in a setting of social and charity and drinking wine, and we got cigars, and and everybody's loose. I mean, I'm still blown away by some of the people that have showed up that are like, oh wow, and you get to meet them, and they're just like us, and they're cool people, and then it starts. Hey, Joe, great to meet you. I've been wanting to meet you for a year. I know you're a busy guy, or I've been wanting to meet you for a long time. Love to grab lunch in the next couple of weeks. I'm going to have, I'll have my assistant follow up. And they're like, oh, absolutely, blah, blah, blah. And then there you go. That starts my top 10. And then, but.
So you're leveraging the brain trust of a committee that you hand select.
Yes.
Pick a date, put it on the calendar,
Yes.
pick a theme,
Yes.
golf, wine, cigars.
Charity event.
Charity.
Where's the money going?
Where's the money?
Where are you
Yeah.
passionate about?
Love it.
And you'll be surprised once it gets going. You have a couple, we probably have 4 conference calls to get everybody, and we have stages of check-in and where we're at and guest sign-ups. But you'll be surprised. It's fun. It puts you, you're in a position of giving. You're in a position of credibility, and you'll be surprised at the success. Now, our goal is 100 people. Our goal is like 15 grand. Am I thinking too small? Yeah. So that's why we're saying, okay, we got to step it up going forward, And so we've got this golf thing, and that could raise 50 grand. And we'll see on, I do them every 90 days. So I still like to keep them around 100 people, so it doesn't get kind of crazy. You can get around, and everybody can meet everybody.
Exclusivity, the intimacy of it, right? You want to have people.
Yeah. And listen, there's, you don't overthink it. Just pick a cool venue. They're everywhere. And go talk to these owners of these bars. Pick an off night, like on a Tuesday. Tell them you're doing it for charity. They throw in wine and snacks and food, and the next thing you know, or they're throwing in the room space, so you have more to give. Because obviously it's not cheap to put these on, especially if you want to do a cool venue. You got to. That's the key. You got to pick a cool venue. You got to have cool people. You got to have a cool theme, and you got to be consistent. Try to do maybe 2 a year to start with, and the connections, the networking, the relationships, the friendships, everything that we're all striving for in our networking is you'll accelerate all that. And me personally, I think it's some of the best things that you can do as an entrepreneur, or be on the board. You don't have to spearhead it, or just attend and be a part of it and see how it goes. For those of you that are interested, I would love to share how we do it. You can come to one of our events. It's $95.
Money goes to charity.
100% donation.
Yeah, that's great.
And again, I would just highly, highly encourage, for those of you that have been out doing stuff in our world, in our networking, do something. I've seen you raise freaking lots of money, man, and I get inspired. I'm like, damn, I got to step up my game. So that's what it is. You need to be inspired by others, and then go take action.
Yeah, somebody inspired me to do the same. So and I'm just trying to leverage my platform, just like you're doing. We learn from each other, by the way.
Doesn't it fill you up, though, at the end of the day? And when you look back after an event and you're like, oh my God, we just did this, and that. And I know you reflect. And it's amazing that, the impact that you're having personally, because I've been to your events, you're just doing it at a high level. You do it as a career. I remember you told me one time, you're like, because I think I said, Derek, I love what you're doing. I love the pivot, like a couple of years ago. And you're like, you go, You go, Terry, I just can't believe I get to do this for a living.
Yeah.
I get the chills because you found and it takes time for people to really find what, in the charity aspect of it all. We all are successful in a way where we're making money, but nothing fills you up more to put a room full of people, of high-powered people that are all excited about the cause, and they're just saying, where do I write the check? I want to get behind this, or I want to get behind you.
Yeah.
And then the business takes care of itself.
Yeah, 100%.
From that. And that's just awesome.
And I appreciate you saying that. And there were, are, and will be many challenges along our way and along our journey, because there is no training manual for the creativity,
training wheels,
and the intellectual challenges that we put on ourselves. So putting an event together, bringing like-minded individuals, this is not easy to do, right? And it takes time, but it takes an intentionality. And I think one of the things that you and I care about, or what makes our events successful, and maybe why people gravitate to us, is because we include the charitable portion of what we're doing as this, important aspect to gathering people and to having them take time out of their day. So it's not all business, but there's an opportunity to do some good. And maybe that moment is 5 minutes in the room, or 7 minutes where we make our ask. And I know you put your money in just like I do, and then we encourage others to join us. But you're right, nothing fills you more than helping people that you'll never meet in the worst tragic situations of their lives. And it's just nice to be able to do that. And so I admire you for making that an important part of your business and event practice.
And I just had a thought too, just on this note, like if if you go to a restaurant and you're sitting with your spouse and you see somebody that you're wanting to meet, that's there as a business person, or they're already a client, send them a drink. Send them, if you see that her and her spouse are enjoying a cocktail or whatever, you get the waitress over and then buy them a round. It goes, that little bit of money that you spend is game changing, because they're just like in shock. They'll come over, you shake their hand. I had a situation, I was courting he's a CEO of a very large company in the Detroit area. He frequents a restaurant that we go to quite a bit. And I did that same thing. I did it. It took me about another 90 days. He came over, introduced, and now I ran him the other night, found out he's a golfer, found out he's a member at Oakland University. So am I. I've never seen him there before. I'm like, you got to be kidding me. And now him and I are golfing on Friday. Now he's bringing somebody, I'm bringing somebody tomorrow. And now that relationship ramped up because of our conversation, but it took 90 days of initiating. So you got to take the initiative in life and in business, and it pays dividends. Just always kind of, it was easy for me to send him a drink.
Now you're being strategic about that, right?
That was strategic.
You're not sending drinks out to everybody that you see at the bar.
No, that was strategic.
Yeah, but it's not like for you. You're doing it as a way, as a gesture, if I understand you correctly, right? As a way of saying, "Hi, I'm here, and I appreciate and respect that you're in the room, and I wanted to say hello, and this is my way of doing it." But you also kind of know in the back of your mind that there's opportunity for you to add value to what they're working on, and cultivating a relationship sometimes takes these types of gestures, whether it's sending a drink or reading about them online or inviting them to a golf outing. Or give me an idea of what are some of the other...
So this guy, I'm not going to mention any names, was on my top 10 list 3-4 months ago. He was somebody that I wanted to make an introduction to. So he was on my top 10 to do for that week. Obviously, it was 3-4 months ago that it just never happened until the other day, and then now we've accelerated the relationship. So, I mean, that was...
You got to be in the right room, you got to be at the right time, and you got to be willing to make those types of gestures.
Exactly. Yeah. He just happened to be on the list, so I had no choice.
Yeah, you had to do it.
So that's, you consciously keep your top 10 always going. And some people might have a top 20. I like to keep it top 10. Those are high-profile people that I ultimately want to build a relationship with. And it may never turn into business. It's just, I want to know them.
So am I missing anything? Let's start from the top. So the number one thing you said to do in terms of strategy that helps you become successful as a networker and relationship builder, number one is to have brand presence, show up at the right places. Number two, have a list that's identifiable and that you consistently outreach to, but not salesy.
Not salesy.
Number three is you recommend highly producing events, collaborating with other centers of influence, and adding a charitable component to each event to help motivate and inspire others to do good work. And the fifth one is to create unique experiences, right, at these events, whether it's the wine, the cigar, or the golf outing. What would be one that I missed?
You mean, is there a number 6?
Is there a 6? Are we missing anything?
I think we covered the bases. I really do. I think, and then it's rinse and repeat, because you know, networking events you got to go to. That's how you meet people, right? I mean, that's how it all starts. The follow up, the drip, the reaching out, the consistency, the gesture, and then, man, even if you've never. The cool thing about it is I see it's like once you do all these top 5 things all over and over and over again. So when you finally have that event, your name has been out there. People are talking about you. Even you and I tag team, like Tony Conj and I, we tag team. There's certain people in our networking inner circle that will ultimately make introductions on our behalf. Hey, have you met Derek? He's got this cool thing going on. I want to connect you to. I'll let you guys take it from here. So when people say, "Hey Terry, how do I introduce you to?" And this is key. Sometimes I say, or sometimes I hear somebody's going to say, "Oh Terry, I'm gonna have somebody call you. Somebody's bought a building, someone's doing a new construction ground up. They want to talk to you about your services. I'm going to have them reach out to you." First of all, that never happens. The person's never going to call. Rarely, 1/10 of 1%. I say, well, better yet. First of all, I appreciate you thinking of me, but better yet, why don't you just send out a text and just connect us and just say, "Hey, I want to introduce you to my good friend Terry. He's got an innovative business. Maybe you two could add some value to what you're doing as far as your project, your real estate project." And then there's a text, and then I just reach out immediately and say, "Thanks, Joe, for the connection. Bob, I love, nice to chat with you, or nice to connect with you via text. I'm going to reach out to you Monday and we'll chat." So those are, as far as connecting the two, you have to do it the right way. It's the other thing too. The best thing to do, in my opinion, is just send a text out. If I'm going to connect you with somebody, I'm going to connect you with the other person via text, and then you guys can take it from there. And I just feel like that can shorten the window of kind of moving things along.
Yeah, I think if I'm asking you for a legal introduction, you could send me that person's contact info, but taking it a step further and actually making the introduction in a group text or in a professional formal email, I think that's a great way to bring people together.
If you refer me to somebody, it's so massive that your credibility now is introducing me. I know this is like basic stuff, but sometimes people miss this little baby step, which means it's everything. If I refer you to somebody, I'm putting my credibility on the line. I'm validating you already. We're bypassing all the BS. Oh, if you're a friend of Derek, then we're talking. Or if you're a friend of Terry, we're talking. I do it all the time. I connect more people that I'm getting connected with. And I think you're a believer in that as well. Be a giver. Connect people without any agenda, the best that you possibly can. And you got to feel comfortable. Like when you go to these, no offense, some of these networking events, and you're forced to give leads, I think that's BS, because I'm not going to give somebody one of my relationships or one of my clients' name, their name. I'm not going to give it to somebody if I feel like that there's just no I'm not going to just do that. If I don't feel that person is going to bring value, or I don't even know if I trust that person.
Yeah, because people are going to be asking you for that all the time, right? I mean, in our situation, people come to us, "Hey, John, or Sarah, could you please introduce me?" I'm like, respectfully, her office numbers on the website, if you want to reach out and do a sales call. I take the step further when I know somebody, I trust them, I like them, I believe in what they do, I see value in their service or product. Then I will take time. And if somebody says, "Hey, would you mind introducing me?" Absolutely. It'll take me 5 minutes, maybe less. But that's a part of my practice I do every day.
I love it. And you and I kind of run in this networking thing, and we're so passionate about it. But the other thing too is, like, when people come to my events, the synergy events, all I'm doing is connecting people. I'm like, "Bob, Joe, oh my God, I'm so glad you guys don't know each other, but you're going to.
This is why you should."
And I bring them over, and then I say, "You guys have at it, enjoy. I'm out." and I'm doing it again.
Yeah.
You know, or someone will come and grab me and say, Terry, this is the guy I've been trying to tell you about. He's got this thing going on. You guys need to chat. Boom. And so that's why people sometimes get down on networking. Oh my God, it's the same old stuff. I'm not going to meet anybody. Your mindset, number one, is bad. You're going into the thing. You want to, like when I go to your event, like I know some of the people that are on your panel that I don't know very well yet.
Mm-hmm.
Some I do and some I don't. I'm not going to say any names. But if I don't go to your event, how the heck am I going to advance the relationship? And if you see me supporting you, you are going to walk me over there, for the most part.
That's right.
And say, hey, Terry, you need to meet so-and-so. And then you're out. I take it from there. So it goes both ways, but you got to get in the game. You got to play the game. You got to know how to play the game.
Yeah.
The game there is a set of rules to play the game at a high level. You know, you've built a career on it. And the other thing that's so sad, I think I see people that have no clue how to build a rapport.
Oh, yeah.
This is another thing. I mean, it's all part of what we're talking about. And you got to be somewhat likable when you come up to somebody. I mean, right? I mean, I don't. You are the master at prepping somebody.
Yeah.
Not to blow it.
Right.
I mean, you get in someone's face. You're a small talker. I mean,
yeah.
It's just. I don't want to say the other thing, but you know, like it's just like, whoo. Okay, this guy's got to get away from me. This is too much. I would never do. So you've just ruined. You know, first of all, that person's probably never going to get introduced to. We're not going to introduce that person because they're doing it all wrong. They got to go through one of your boot camps to get back on track. And there is a real deficiency as I go about my way, go running my business, meeting a lot of people, that some people are just an absolute natural at building an instant rapport, but some people are just horrible at it. So if you're an introvert, you know, this is something that you really need to, even though like the topic of networking seems so simple and elementary, it is not. And if you struggle with it, you have to work on it. Sometimes it comes easier for people, you know, but others, if you want to scale and you want to grow, you are ultimately selling yourself. You know, maybe you're not selling your product yet, but if you can't sell yourself on what you do for a living and why people want to work with you, you really got to take a step back and work on that. Books, tapes, tools, workshops, learn how to speak, how to do that. Because at 19 years old, you know, I was petrified of public speaking. And because when I got into that, I got to a certain point in this company that I was with, you know, we had to get up in front. I was scared. We had to like present, and some guy told me that whoever holds the marker makes all the money. I'm like, ooh, okay. So now I have to, if I want to make the money, I better like figure this out. Right. And you go through that fear, but it's not that fearful once you do it. You're like, that wasn't that bad. We're all people. But it is fearful. I'm not going to, standing up and talking and giving a speech, it is challenging.
So agreed 100%. And anybody that thinks it's easy hasn't done enough of it.
Correct. Or
maybe tried it a few times and they're like, I just pass, entirely. I mean, it's something that you and I consistently work on. I'm a preparer. I need to prepare in order to feel confident to deliver any kind of message. I don't love spontaneous talk. I can do it, but I much rather prefer to be prepared and to have a guide for what I'd like to say. Sometimes, sometimes it's memorized, and sometimes I have a great outline, and I got to do my job to stay on task with it. Yeah. So as it relates to introverts, because one of the things I remind people all the time, and I know you believe this, is I believe for every goal we have personally or professionally, there's someone out there that can help us achieve it. And my answer is networking is what helps you get there. Mm-hmm. So you've cultivated relationships with a lot of successful people in various, I would say, buckets within your career, some personal, some professional, some mentors. How would you go about, as an introvert, making an impression on someone important to you?
I don't know if you separate the introvert versus the extrovert. Is it somebody that, are you asking me that, okay, if it's an introvert, you're asking me, how should they make an impression? Is it somebody that they don't know, or is it somebody that they already do know?
Let's say they don't know them and they have them on their top 10 list, like you have before, right? And they're a little hesitant, and maybe they don't have the confidence to go out and do what you do on a day-to-day. What kind of advice would you provide?
So, it goes back to, you got to get to where the people are at. If it's somebody that you just want to reach out, social is always a good place to start. When you reach out to somebody on their Facebook or on their LinkedIn, it's always just say, hey, I've seen your stuff. I really enjoy it. I've been consuming it. I'm in a similar business. I'm kind of in growth mode. Love the opportunity just to, spend 5 or 10 minutes with you, either coffee or phone call, whatever's easier, just to pick your brain. And, what I found by doing that, even, as I still network and reach out to people, people, when it happens to me, I enjoy giving back. And a lot of people, you'll be surprised, even though maybe it's a little fearful for reaching out, will respond in a positive way. As long as you're not trying to sell them something and be rude on their social media, like, hey man, let's get hop on a call. Like, who the hell are you?
You're right,
That's not going to happen, right? I mean, it just takes time. And you might have to send that person, if he sees you're persistent with him and then the message stays similar, that you really just want to ask a few questions because maybe you got stuck in something and you want to just maybe get an opinion or how he did this specific thing to get to this level in his business. People love that. People want to share. People want to give back. So that would be like on the social thing. The other thing I would say is, I know some introverts are fearful of going into rooms, but I think there's a lot of successful introverts out there. Either you get really good at building an online following in your basement or in your room that you don't have to go out and you built this brand. But to me, I don't know how to not like that. I don't know how that would work. You have to go to events and pick groups that you like, when you go there's people that are going to be similar to what you're doing. You'll find people that have similar personalities. And then when you go there, you might find somebody that and respect that maybe that person can walk you over to different people and ultimately make introductions. Because if you fear you don't have the ability to go up to somebody, you got to work on that muscle. But also, if somebody that there that you've already built a relationship with, that you're comfortable with, that person will then take you, tell them what you're trying to do. You want to meet a few different people. You have a little bit of an issue going up to people directly. Maybe that person will walk you up and make the introduction, and then you can start this conversation, right? And then that conversation, you got to work on. You can't just blab. There's things you want to say and not to say during that engagement.
Give me an example of what not to say in a conversation with a new contact.
Hey Derek, man, I'd love to just pick your brain. Do you got a minute? Can I talk to you right now or something like that? Like, you are now. It's usually not the time or the place because you're obviously, let's say you're going to be speaking at the event. You don't have time to take this guy and go sit down and, I just come up and say, Derek, I love what you're doing. Love to exchange contact information, or matter of fact, I already have I'm going to reach out to you via LinkedIn, and love to just pick your brain in the next, maybe next month or next couple of weeks. Would you be able to give me 5 minutes or something like that? Just to show some assertiveness, But then the guy probably won't remember you, and it's going to go into your top 10, and then that's where you're going to have to start reaching out to that person, adding value. Sending some consistent messages. And then maybe when you see him at the next event, next month, you're going to be like, oh my God, there's that guy again. It's going to be an easier, and he's going to remember you, and he's going to appreciate even though he never responded to you, don't ever take it personally.
Right.
And when you go to the event, you're there, boom, it's magic. Finally, now he's ready to engage, and hey, let's grab that coffee or let's grab that breakfast. The step 1 through 5 never change. It's just how do you move people
through. For you, it's a rinse and repeat model that you would advise them if they didn't get to that person on that day. Actually, I want to ask you a different question. If you're at an event and like you shake hands, like me, we shake hands with a lot of people.
Yes.
How do you remember who to follow up with after the event?
Well, the exchange on the usually the contact information I usually will get fairly quickly.
So you'll ask them for their cell or email or business card, and then all of a sudden you wake up the next day and you have 5 or 6 of them or 10 of them in your pocket?
Yeah, as I talk to people, we have a good conversation. A lot of times I don't even carry business cards really anymore. If I just feel like there's a good, hey, we really both want to follow up, then I'll just basically grab their contact information. And then I'll send them, I'll grab theirs, put it in my thing, and then I'll and then there's an app that you can scan and just, you grab it really quick and send your contact information. Boom, there's a lead. Now, but you got to follow up in the next day or two and just say, hey, it was great to meet you at that event. And love to connect and stay in touch. Maybe next couple of weeks we'll get together for coffee. That's kind of how I would.
So keep it simple, and when you're just exchange their contact information on the spot. What do you do when you're at an event? Let's say there's like 500 people in the room. Do you have a plan before you walk into that room, or is it just establishing brand presence, saying hello to familiar faces? How do you go about navigating a room of 500 people?
Yeah. First of all, I know I'm not going to get to 500 people. I'm going to be looking for the people that are putting the event on. I want to get to them and meet them and build a relationship, with them. I don't really try to set a goal to work the whole entire room. I think that's almost overwhelming and impossible. I don't know how you would do it. I mean, personally, I'm looking for maybe 10 good, solid contacts, lead relationships, people that are in my similar industry, people that I've identified that are doing things that I'm going to be able to bring value to immediately. I'm not trying to solicit them on something completely out of their realm. And then, I think if you can, out of 500 people, if you can get, 10 solid relationships would be a great goal. And then, eventually, you're doing business with 2 or 3 of them.
So you can take a room of 500, condense it down to 10, and then you hope to get a couple deals or opportunities out of 2 or 3 of them.
Exactly. Yeah.
10 seems like a lot.
Well,
that's a lot of conversations.
I mean, it's not going to happen overnight. But,
No.
But I'm saying like 10, it is a lot of conversations, but it can be done before the thing even gets kicked off. Get to the event somewhat early. I think you could do most of your networking like in the beginning when everyone's giddy and you're meeting people and you're getting introduced. I've always found that I'm typically getting introduced by other people that already know me, trust me, have done business with me.
Mm-hmm.
They walk me right over, and I'll even walk up to somebody like, I'll say, Derek, do you know that person over there? And you're like, yeah, it's my cousin. I have lunch with him every week.
Probably a true story.
I mean, would you mind can you just give me a quick introduction? And you're like, sure. And you'll walk me over there. And that's one. Boom. Right. And then usually if I'm talking to somebody with a center of influence, guess what? He's already talking to 2 or 3 people around him that I get to meet the 2 or 3 people because he's already connected. And if you've introduced me to that guy, I'm already in. Because the other 3 guys probably know you as well and that guy. So you can expand and get to your 10 quick. I mean, you can get to 20, 30 people just before the event even starts. If you're focused and if you have a plan. You can't just wing it. But I would say that would be the best and easiest thing to do is grab people that already know somebody, and then you get introduced, and then they know people, and then you're getting introduced. And that I'm just speaking specifically about your event coming up. Because your events are at the, there's so many people in that lobby just kind of getting there and they're there to talk, they're there to meet, they're there also to meet and grow their brand and their network. And they want to meet cool people and people that got stuff going on as well. So it's really not that difficult to walk out with 10 quality business owners that you never would have met otherwise.
Yeah, no, I love the reminder to get there early. I tell people all the time, if you're in a new market, a new industry, a new organization that you just signed up for, show up early to the event, greet people as they walk in, help you establish some confidence. Maybe the organizer's there that you can just stand next to them, right? And welcome people as they walk into the room. I think that's a very good strategy as well. Any advice that you got along the way? I know you mentioned reading the right books, the tapes, which is obviously what we used to do in the 80s and 90s, but any particular advice that you received from a mentor that stands out that helped you develop into what you are today?
No, I just feel like don't be afraid to ask for help. We all get stuck in our businesses. So number one, feel free to reach out to other people that are successful and that can help you. I would say, always be, knowledge is power, man. So, always be reading. I try to read. I'm not I don't read a ton. I mean, I'm usually, one book a month. I try to be on audiobooks. I have a hard time just reading. I fall asleep, which is a great way to put me out at night. And I'll read 5 pages. I'm like, so I find like, if I'm doing my workout, I'll listen to an audio book, and that I'm getting fresh feed, or I'm just I'm listening to a podcast. Those are I try to do at least an hour or half hour of something that either in the morning or at night, or if I'm going to walk, I'm trying to like fuel myself with information, whether it's health, whether it's finances, whether it's taxes. Just because I'm in the business, I have to stay on the cutting edge of tax credits and refunds and stuff like that. There's all these programs. So yeah, I think those are some things that have helped me along the way.
What advice would you provide to others that want to cultivate relationships? They want to become more confident in developing relationships and networking, or just somebody that's generally thinking to themselves, someday I'd like to be where Terry's at in my career.
So maybe rephrase that one more time. Just so
Mark, let's stop there.
Sorry.
And no worries. This is the beauty of not going live, is we can redo this. What advice might you have for the next generation of leaders?
Like I just said, I think as you're up and coming, man, like don't be afraid to reach out to other people for help. I mean, I think that's the big one. Make sure you surround yourself, get into networking groups. I will say this, you can't do it alone. I mean, that's probably one of my biggest, a lot of these younger people, including my son, they're like these solopreneurs, or they're looking to, maybe they're a little bit more introverted. They're not old school networkers like you and I are, so they have to figure that out. But, you can't do it alone. So I would really highly recommend, knowledge, networking, reading, getting involved in some sort of group that can hold you accountable for what you want to achieve. Because you can't do it alone, man. That's
the reality of where we're at.
You need help,
you need
even
it.
at every level.
Yeah,
every stage in life, you need help. You need to get to that next level.
And personally or professionally, right? It's just all at every stage. We need people to help us get where we need to be, and without the ability to cultivate relationships, you're kind of on an island.
Yeah, and it's kind of a terrible way to live.
Yeah.
In a way, you're going to get stuck, and you're going to be you're going to just you're not going to be able to accelerate or expedite your growth by just twiddling your thumbs and not learning and getting out there and meeting new people and scaling and all that good stuff. All kind of is intertwined.
Great stuff, man. Well, I appreciate the conversation today, and I hope that you have as well. This has been a truly enjoyable conversation with a friend of mine, Terry Judge, who has become really masterful at building relationships, not only in business and his personal life, but also helping to give back to the community, creating experiences for his clients, his centers of influence, and his friends, really. I mean, everybody that you work with is a friend, and everybody that's a friend, you kind of work with them in some capacity, or you help them out, and or you leverage each other's platforms to grow and to share in support of others. So I admire that, and I hope you've been able to enjoy a little bit of this conversation. On the Power Connector podcast, I'm Derek Dickow. We'll see you soon. Appreciate Terry Judge being on the program today. Thank you, Terry.
Thanks, Derek.
And we'll see you soon, and appreciate you joining us. You can download this on wherever you get your podcasts, and we'll see you on the next episode. Thank you.